Lori stared at her signature on the prenuptial agreement. The black ink was still wet, slightly smudging on the pristine white paper. Her heart tightened, heavy like the pen she had just held in her hand. Across the table, Ethan smiled softly, his handsome face betraying no emotion. "It's just a precaution, you understand, right? Just in case something happens." His voice was gentle but hollow, the words falling like knives that cut deep into her soul. "Just in case something happens." Lori forced a smile, nodding as if she understood, while inside, confusion and suspicion clawed at her heart. Just a precaution? Precaution for what? In 7 years together, they had faced countless hardships side by side. They had lived in that cramped apartment during the early years, sharing every penny to build a life together. She had always trusted Ethan, giving him all her love and loyalty without reservation. But why now, as they were about to embark on this new chapter? Did he want to draw such clear financial boundaries? The feeling of betrayal twisted inside Lori like a pain she couldn't put into words. Standing before the man she had trusted unconditionally, she realized everything had been a lie. Ethan wasn't just planning his finances without her, he was preparing for a life that didn't include her at all. Lori's heart pounded in her chest. She struggled to keep her composure, nodding as if she understood, but deep inside she felt an icy chill creep into her veins. 7 years together through thick and thin, from that tiny student apartment to building stable careers. And now, on the threshold of marriage, Ethan was planning a future without her. 2 weeks ago, Lori had accidentally discovered Ethan's secret account. $150,000, a massive amount that he had kept hidden, neither from his salary nor their joint savings. She wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation, that maybe it was a surprise for their honeymoon or a special gift. But then, when she casually brought up their finances, Ethan had shrugged, saying, "You handle all that. I don't care about money." He looked her straight in the eye and lied. There was no surprise. That money was a secret, and secrets always came with betrayal. Inner turmoil and Lori's calculated patience. Lori wanted to scream. To confront him right then and there. She wanted to expose everything, to force him to admit his deception. But she knew that if she confronted him in anger, Ethan would deny everything. He would cover up and hide his secrets even deeper. Instead, Lori decided to play his game. She would be the naive, trusting fiancé, hiding her doubts behind sweet smiles and warm embraces. For the next 2 weeks, Lori played her role perfectly. She laughed at Ethan's jokes, cooked romantic dinners, and even helped him plan their dream wedding. But at night, in the quiet of their room, Lori opened her laptop, digging up every piece of information she could find about that secret account. She saved every piece of evidence, every transaction, every suspicious transfer. She started visiting lawyers, learning about every clause in the prenuptial agreement, mastering every legal loophole Ethan might use to take everything from her. The truth unfolds, but that wasn't all. One Saturday morning, while Ethan was in the shower, Lori stumbled upon an email from someone named Rebecca on his computer. "Can't wait to see you this weekend," the subject line read, piercing her heart like a knife. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. That one line confirmed her worst fears. Ethan wasn't just betraying her financially, he was betraying her emotionally. In that moment, Lori understood that she wasn't just dealing with a liar. She was dealing with a man who had been planning his exit for a long time. A perfectly calculated, cold-blooded plan. But what Ethan didn't know was that she knew everything and was quietly preparing for her own perfect counterattack. Emotional resilience and intelligence. Lori sat motionless on the couch, her eyes staring blankly at the bathroom door where Ethan was humming his favorite tune. The sound of water splashing, steady and rhythmic, mirrored the chaos swirling inside her. He was as carefree as always, blissfully unaware that his web of lies had been unraveled. The emails from Rebecca were still there, undeniable proof of his betrayal. Her heart ached, but her face remained calm. She didn't cry. She had already cried enough. Transformation from shock to strategy. That night, as Ethan slept soundly beside her, Lori lay awake. She listened to his steady breathing, each breath cutting through her like a blade. This man, whom she had loved and trusted for 7 years, was nothing more than a masterful liar. From the initial shock, the pain and despair gradually transformed into anger. But she knew that if she let her anger control her, she would lose everything. Lori remembered her mother's words. When you're in the most pain, never act in haste. Stay calm, think clearly, and strike in the smartest way possible. She swallowed her tears, replacing them with cold determination. Ethan had been planning his exit for a long time, so she would plan his downfall just as meticulously. Playing the naive fiancé while planning revenge. In the days that followed, Lori lived a double life. By day, she was the devoted, loving fiancé. She laughed at Ethan's jokes, hugged him tightly as if nothing were wrong. She went dress shopping, picked out wedding invitations, and even helped plan their dream honeymoon. Ethan smiled, completely convinced that she was still his naive, trusting lover. But by night, Lori became someone else, sharp, calculating, and cold. She sat before her laptop, her eyes icy and determined, tracing every step Ethan had taken. The emails from Rebecca, the mysterious money transfers, the credit card transactions that didn't match his stories. She saved everything. Every message, every receipt, every piece of evidence. Not a single detail was overlooked. Planning the ultimate counterattack, Lori knew that to destroy Ethan, she needed more than just anger and pain. She needed a flawless plan, a counterstrike he would never see coming. She sought out the best divorce and financial lawyer in town, someone who had helped her best friend escape a nightmare marriage. When she showed the prenuptial agreement, the lawyer smirked. He thinks he's clever, but he made a fatal mistake, not declaring all his assets. If that hidden money was earned during your relationship, it's yours too. Lori's heart raced. She had found Ethan's Achilles heel. Patience and waiting for the perfect moment. But Lori knew that financial evidence wasn't enough. Ethan wasn't just unfaithful with money, he was unfaithful with his heart. She needed to know how deep his relationship with Rebecca went, how many lies he had told. So she waited patiently, playing her role until she had enough evidence to shatter his carefully constructed world. Every morning, she made breakfast for Ethan, kissed him on the cheek as he left for work, watching him leave before resuming her investigation. She tracked his every move, documenting every suspicious activity. The long phone calls he claimed were work-related, the late nights out with friends. Internal conflict and cold determination. There were nights when Lori had to bite her lip to keep from crying. She wanted to confront him, to scream and demand to know why he had betrayed her. But she knew that if she did, Ethan would deny everything, spinning more lies and burying his secrets even deeper. She had to endure, to play her part until she had everything she needed to destroy his entire plan. She lay beside him in the darkness, her mind cold and calculating. Ethan had betrayed her in the cruelest way, but he never expected her to play his game even better than he did. In the dark, Lori whispered to herself, "Enjoy it while it lasts, Ethan, because when I strike, you'll lose everything." Profound realization and asserting strength. That night, Lori couldn't sleep. She lay awake, engulfed by pain and betrayal. But amidst the pain, she felt a new strength rising within her. She remembered all the times Ethan had held her hand, looked into her eyes, and promised a future full of happiness. He had exploited her trust and love, using them as tools to execute his cruel scheme. Lori clenched her jaw. "You think I'm weak and foolish, don't you? You think I'll beg you to stay? No, Ethan. You've underestimated me." She felt the coldness in her inner voice, a coldness that surprised even herself. But it didn't scare her. It gave her the strength to continue this game, to turn the tables and destroy everything he had meticulously built. Emotional climax. The decision to strike back. In that moment, Lori no longer felt pain. She was no longer weak or powerless. She felt power coursing through every vein, every muscle. Ethan had dragged her into hell, but from this very hell, she would rise and pull him down with her. The next morning, as Ethan left for work, Lori stood before the mirror, staring at herself. She saw determined, steely eyes staring back, no trace of the weak woman who had cried herself to sleep for countless nights. "All right, Ethan, you have your plan, and I have mine." She smiled, a mysterious, calculating smile. For the first time in weeks, Lori felt she was in control. She was no longer a victim of betrayal. Now she was the one pulling the strings, and Ethan would pay for every lie, every act of deceit. Lori stood up, more confident and powerful than ever. "You want a life without me? Fine. I'll make sure that life is miserable." She picked up her phone and called her lawyer, her voice steady and cold. "Prepare everything. I'm ready." Hanging up, Lori looked out the window, sunlight illuminating her radiant face. For the first time in days, she felt at peace. She knew she was doing the right thing, and she wouldn't stop until Ethan paid for everything. Ethan thought he was in control, but now the game had changed, and the one in control was Lori. Strategic revenge and justice. Lori walked out of the lawyer's office, her chest filled with determination. She had heard enough of Ethan's sweet lies, endured too many sleepless nights knowing about his betrayal. Now she didn't just want to end everything. She wanted Ethan to pay dearly for his deception. The foundation of Lori and Ethan's relationship. From deep love to bitter betrayal. Lori remembered the first day they met at that little coffee shop near their university. Ethan had spilled coffee on her shirt, his face flushed with embarrassment, his blue eyes so sincere that she couldn't stay mad at him. That day, she believed it was fate, that this clumsy encounter would lead to a beautiful new chapter in her life. They had been through the hardest times together. They lived in a tiny apartment barely big enough for a bed and a rickety dining table. They had shared instant noodles, laughed about splitting their meager paychecks. Lori always believed that no matter how tough things got, they had each other. But now, all those memories tasted bitter. Ethan had destroyed everything with his lies and betrayal. Those late nights he claimed to be working overtime, those sudden business trips, they were all just covers for his secret rendezvous with Rebecca. She couldn't believe the man who had sworn to love her forever could deceive her so cruelly. Developing Rebecca's character. Lori once thought Rebecca was just a name, a stranger with no relevance to her life. But now, that name haunted her. She knew Rebecca wasn't necessarily a villain or a homewrecker. She was just another victim of Ethan's elaborate lies. During one of her surveillance missions, Lori saw Rebecca walking out of a cafe, her face glowing with happiness. She was young, beautiful, full of life. Lori realized that Rebecca genuinely loved Ethan, with the same sincerity and devotion Lori once had. Lori couldn't bring herself to hate Rebecca because she, too, was just a pawn in Ethan's cruel game. Meticulous investigation and crafting a master plan for revenge. Lori knew that to dismantle Ethan's double life, she had to be meticulous. She had gathered enough evidence of his secret account and the illegal transactions linked to it. But she also knew that financial evidence alone wouldn't be enough. She needed a decisive blow, an endgame move that would leave him ruined. She hired a forensic accountant, an expert who meticulously traced the origin of every dollar in Ethan's secret account. Each transaction unfolded on the screen, suspicious expenses, unexplained transfers, and every payment linked to Rebecca. Lori felt like she was piecing together a horrifying puzzle of betrayal. But she didn't rush. Lori knew that to take down a liar like Ethan, she needed patience and precision. She pretended to be clueless, continuing her role as the blissful bride-to-be. She still smiled at him, still planned the wedding with him, even suggesting a few extravagant expenses to make him believe she was completely in the dark. Asserting strength and steely determination for revenge. But inside, Lori was no longer weak or vulnerable. She felt a fire burning within her, a fire that ignited every fiber of her being. "You think I'll always be weak and dependent on you? You're wrong, Ethan. You taught me how to fight back." Lori no longer felt pain or resentment. She only felt cold determination. She had meticulously prepared for the final move, and when she made her strike, Ethan would never see it coming. He thought he was in control, but the moment he signed that prenuptial agreement, he had fallen right into Lori's trap. Lori smiled slyly as she looked at herself in the mirror. She was ready for the endgame, and when it was over, Ethan would lose everything: his money, his career, his love, and his carefully crafted double life. She whispered to herself, "You betrayed my trust, but you'll never destroy my strength and resolve." Game over, Ethan, and there can only be one winner, me. Empowerment and liberation. Lori stood before the mirror, admiring herself in her perfectly tailored business suit, its sharp lines emphasizing her power and confidence. Her long hair flowed freely, her piercing eyes glowing with determination. She once saw herself as weak and vulnerable, but now Lori realized her true strength. She was no longer the naive woman who believed in Ethan's empty promises. She had changed. Strong, decisive, and fearless. Journey from emotional turmoil to complete independence. Lori remembered all the nights she pretended to sleep, the mornings she faked smiles as Ethan held her with his deceitful eyes. She had suppressed every emotion to avoid screaming at him, to avoid questioning him, to avoid exposing the pain he had caused. But that suppression didn't make her weaker. Instead, it built an unshakable resilience, fueling her resolve to fight back. She had gone through every emotional stage: pain, anger, contempt, and finally, cold indifference. She had once doubted herself, blamed herself for being so trusting. But now, Lori no longer felt any pain. She had accepted the truth. Ethan was a betrayer, and she would never let him hurt her again. Ethan thought he controlled the game. But now the rules had changed. Lori wasn't just a player. She was the game master. And when she made her move, Ethan would lose everything. Looking at her reflection, Lori whispered, "You betrayed my trust, but you can't break my strength. The game is over, Ethan, and the only winner is me." Jane's confession and Lori's turning point. Jane shook her head, her eyes filled with worry. "No, I don't think it's just work. I hate to say this, but I'm afraid he's cheating on you." Lori took Jane's hand, feeling the sincerity behind her words. In that moment, Lori realized she wasn't alone. Jane had no idea that she had just handed Lori the final piece she needed to complete her plan for revenge: the decision to leave without confrontation and complete liberation. That morning, after Ethan left the house, Lori watched him walk away for the last time. She didn't feel pain or hatred anymore. Instead, she felt relief. "I don't need you anymore, Ethan. I'm so much stronger now." She closed the door, calmly packing her belongings, taking everything that was hers. She had prepared meticulously. Documents proving his infidelity, financial evidence of his secret account, and even the lease agreement for his apartment with Rebecca. When everything was ready, Lori stood in the empty house and smiled. She didn't need to confront Ethan. The truth would reveal itself when he returned to find her gone for good. Lori had freed herself from the cycle of lies and pain. She had won. Not through vengeance, but by embracing her inner strength and the determination to liberate herself. The last goodbye, and the end of an illusion. Lori stood before the house that was once their home, her eyes fixed on the dark brown wooden door. She remembered the early days when they moved in together, filled with hope and dreams of a happy future. They had painted the living room walls, laughing and leaving messy handprints as a promise of everlasting love. But now, all that remained were painful memories. She had lost everything, not because of the money in Ethan's secret account, but because of his cruel betrayal. Ethan's manipulative charm. Lori remembered their last conversation before she left. Ethan stood in the living room, his face gentle and caring. He walked over to her, his blue eyes as sincere as the day they first met. "Lori, you have to understand. I was just trying to protect us." His voice soft, sweet. He lightly touched her hand, his eyes full of charm, as if he truly cared. "You mean everything to me. You know that, right?" That was what hurt Lori the most. Ethan wasn't just a liar, he was a master manipulator. He knew how to use his eyes, his voice, his gentle gestures to make her melt. He knew her weakness was her faith in his sincerity, and he had exploited it ruthlessly. Lori let out a bitter laugh, pulling her hand away, maintaining a safe distance between them. She looked him straight in the eye, her voice calm but cold. "If I mean everything to you, then why did you plan a life without me?" Ethan froze for a moment, but quickly regained his composure. He smiled, tilting his head. "What are you talking about? Don't overthink things, Lori. I just wanted to make sure you're protected, no matter what." Lori's face remained calm, but inside she was burning with anger. "Then what about the secret account with $150,000? Or the dates with Rebecca that you've been hiding from me?" The smile on Ethan's face vanished. In that brief moment, Lori saw fear flicker in his eyes. But he quickly masked it with a smug grin. "You went behind my back? I never thought you'd be this petty, Lori." Lori's strategic restraint. Lori could have screamed at him, could have unleashed all her rage and demanded answers. But she knew that would only make him feel in control of the situation. Instead, Lori smiled gently. "You're right, I did go behind your back, and I found out a lot of interesting things. But now, I don't care anymore." Ethan looked at her, stunned. "What do you mean?" Lori shrugged, her voice light but firm. "I wasted too much time trusting you, loving you blindly. That ends now. You want to be with Rebecca? Go ahead. You want to keep all your assets? Keep them, but don't expect me to be the fool in your life anymore." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but Lori turned her back and walked out the door. She didn't need to hear any more of his sweet, deceitful words. She had freed herself from his manipulative control. A new beginning. Lori stood on the beach, her bare feet sinking into the soft sand, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the sea met the sky. The warm afternoon sun bathed her face, carrying with it the scent of freedom. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and exhaled softly. For the first time in years she felt truly alive. Ethan had once been her whole world, and when that world crumbled, she thought she would never stand again. But now Lori realized that the collapse wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new life. A life free from lies and manipulation. A life where she could choose her own path. New hopes and open doors to the future. Lori walked back to her car, took out a brand new journal with a sky blue cover. She opened to the first page and wrote, "My new chapter, a journey of my own." She smiled, feeling the excitement of a woman standing on the threshold of independence, no longer afraid or hesitant. She began planning all the things she always wanted to do but never had the chance to. Learning to paint with oils, traveling alone to places she'd never been, opening a small handmade craft shop she'd dreamed of for so long. She once thought she needed someone by her side to do all of this. But now she understood that she could do it all on her own, without relying on anyone. Lori's journey to freedom. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Lori picked it up and saw a message from Jane, Ethan's sister. "Lori, I really admire your strength. If you ever want to talk, I'm always here." Lori smiled, feeling warmth spread through her. Even though things were over with Ethan, she hadn't lost everything. She had gained Jane, a true friend and a reminder that not everyone in his family was like him. She texted back, "I'm glad to have you by my side on this new journey. Let's meet up soon." Lori knew life wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges and hardships, but she was ready to face them all, with her strong heart and unwavering spirit. She was no longer the weak woman manipulated by sweet lies. She was now a free and proud woman, ending with hope and an open future. Lori walked along the sandy shore, feeling the waves gently lap against her bare feet. She looked out to the horizon, where the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange. It was breathtakingly beautiful, like a sign of rebirth. A new chapter waiting for her. She laughed softly, feeling happiness bloom within her chest. Her life didn't end when she left Ethan, it was just beginning. An exciting journey of hope and discovery lay ahead. And this time, she would write her own story, no longer bound by the past or lies. Lori had found herself again, and now she was ready to embrace all the wonders life had to offer. The story closes with Lori standing on the shore, her eyes gleaming with hope, and an open future waiting just beyond the horizon.